Among the Georgia players in the NFL draft process, there may not be an individual guy getting more hype heading into the combine and then into the draft than Devonte Wyatt, a defensive lineman that not many people knew his name, though he's played a large role for the Bulldogs for multiple years. Defensive lineman beside Jordan Davis, maybe not the accolades that Jordan Davis gets, but there's a shot he gets drafted higher. I'm Dayne Young. That's Brent Rollins. We're with UGASports.com. Brent also works with Pro Football Focus. We're here to do NFL draft previews for the Georgia Bulldogs, and we think Devonte Wyatt will be the fourth Bulldog drafted, likely in that late first, early to mid-second round kind of guy. Brent, Devonte Wyatt, why do you think that he's getting as much hype and buzz generated about him as he gets through this NFL draft process?
Two things. One, I think we've talked about him as a player and as a productive, highly productive player for years. It just, the previous to this year, it didn't equate to sacks. And this year he finally started actually turning all of the pressures that he'd been getting into actual sacks. And I think that those things get you noticed. The second thing was early, when Bruce Feldman does his freaks list that he does every year, and he puts Wyatt's name fifth, and he says, hey, he ran a 4.87 40 in the offseason. That, I think, was an eye-opener for a lot of people where, hey, maybe this guy's completely revamped his body in the time that he's been at Georgia. He's always been sort of short area quick, but now it's taking that to the next level from a speed and quickness standpoint.
He's listed at 6'3", 315 pounds. Looks a little bit smaller than probably most people think, only because he's lined up beside Jordan Davis for so many years, and Jordan Davis is probably closer to 350. Wyatt maybe a little north of 315, just maybe depends on the day. You had mentioned the sacks. He did have a sack and a half against Arkansas, the most he had in a game. Did have 7 tackles twice in his Georgia career. Second-team All-American this last season, but he did play for a national championship team, and I got him even more game tape. And I think what scouts are interested in is how is he going to measure out at the combine, because this is a guy that I think if he does really, really well at the combine, you get into the first round. Doesn't do quite as well, could even slide as far as early third round.
Maybe not that far, but he's definitely one where if you do those things that have been reported about you and you show it and you sort of, it's kind of those, hey, I think it's what I've been told. Well, now let me see it for real. And you do go out there and you run, 4.87, 4.9, and your vertical and your all the other explosive measurements, your 3-cone, your things like that are just lights out. Yes, you are now in that squarely in that round one. And it's when we look at him versus somebody like Jordan Davis, who we looked at earlier in the week, it's what do you prefer? What do you need as a defense? And if you want impact on 3 downs, if you want impact on first, second, and third down versus the run defender that Jordan Davis is on first and second down, you take Wyatt. It's just if that is your need. And because over the course of their career, Jordan Davis on third down has like a 58 pass rush grade. Wyatt has an 80.2 pass rush grade on third down. Jordan Davis, I think, has 1 career QB pressure on third down. Wyatt has 36 or 7, something like that. So, if you want that 3-down player and get more out of that, more sort of value from that perspective, at least from a snap perspective, he might be your pick actually over Jordan Davis.
And as we begin to look at his game tape, what we're going to see here is the opportunities that he capitalized on. Like you said, probably the most in his career, became an impact player for the Bulldogs. But at the latter part of this, the second half of the game film, you're going to see opportunities that were there for him. Still made an impact on the play. Don't get me wrong. He kind of guided players in a certain direction, but didn't always make the full play, the game-changing play that could have happened. But let's start with some of the positive things from Devonte Wyatt. This against Alabama in the SEC championship.
Yeah, and it's that short area quickness that he has. Look at the burst where the handoff is made versus, and he's on the interior line. He gets through the left guard. It's, hey, handoff. He might be blocked, but then all of a sudden there's an explosion of him getting through the block and then going through and making the tackle.
I mean, whenever at the sideline camera you see 70 as squares to the screen as you do,
Yeah.
you
Parallel with the line of with the sideline. That's not good.
Yeah, it's good for Devonte Wyatt.
Yes,
he did his job well.
And he actually in his career, so that's 4 years. I think something on the neighborhood of like 1,400, almost 1,500 snaps. He only missed 8 tackles. Now, obviously, you don't miss. It's not something you typically miss a lot of tackles as a defensive lineman, but it's a checkbox of, hey, at least, especially in the running game, is not going to miss a lot of tackles.
You talk about the quickness. I look at the strike that he has here and how he's not deterred. He stays on his path.
Actually, a little late off the ball, even on the play as well.
Yeah.
But yes, and that's what you see with him is just. You hear it. You're going to hear it when you hear all the draft guys talk, and you're probably going to hear if Daniel Jeremiah happens to come on the podcast with you and coach this year, he's probably going to talk about get off. Let's look at this guy. Let's talk about this guy's get off. Well, it's how fast you get off the ball when it's snapped, and he has one of the better ones, especially at that size, of any in this draft class.
Here he is against Arkansas.
Gets off a little too quick, but then destroys the guard. The running back wants no part of him. And he gets a sack, big time sack on KJ Jefferson.
Yeah, kind of a stumble at the start. He got off too quick and had to pause himself, which is, pretty darn good body control.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to see a play later. Where it's just, and also what you see with him, it's relentless effort. It's even if it's not quite sort of perfect and all going well for him, that he's still working hard, getting after the QB, going to try to make a play.
One reason that some opportunities were there for Wyatt, and I think that it's interesting that you're going to have him and Davis in the same class. Jordan Davis double teamed here, so Wyatt has a lot of space to work with here if he can win his matchup. And I think the NFL teams are going to look at that and say, all right, what will he be like not beside a Jordan Davis?
Oh, and also at least they get to see a lot of one-on-one reps. Mm-hmm. And hey, can you win if we get you as a coordinator, as a defensive coordinator? If I get you a one-on-one battle, can you win this matchup? You see a lot of that from him. His pass rush win rate is twice that of Jordan Davis's.
That's a pretty good win weight, I think.
We can put that one on clip that one for the
here he goes
social media
against let's clip it for social media and lean into the misspeak. We'll make a metric out of it for PFF. All right, the weight of the win based on however many. See, you're the data guy. We got to work this out. Here he is against Tennessee.
Again, one-on-one rep, absolutely destroys the guard. Kind of probably gets held a little bit.
This was called for holding. This was a penalty on Tennessee, an obvious holding. And frankly, when you're holding kind of back here, in the backfield, you can kind of, that flag's coming there. Devonte did a good job of making sure.
I didn't hold. Yeah, you did. Still forces the QB to get rolled. And the key there is how quick did he win? Like he won that rep very quick. In the instant he dipped through, good bend, good uses of his hands. That's all these guys. They want to see how violent are you with your hands. Can you win as much with your hands and your brains as you can with just sheer size and strength?
Absolutely spooks the quarterback and forces an errant throw. Open receiver. This could have been a completion and a first down. Poor throw because of what Devonte Wyatt did.
Yep.
There it is one more time. Now we move on to this is also Arkansas. We talked about some of the opportunities with him, right?
Yeah, and this is, you talk about, hey, when you're not beside Jordan Davis, well, maybe, hey, when you're the one getting the double team, what happens to you? Because guess who's beside him on this play is it Stackhouse?
Stackhouse, yeah.
Yeah, 78. So now Wyatt is the one that gets the initial double, and then the guy works off of him, and he gets handled.
He still occupies space. This is one thing we said with Jordan Davis too. So like he keeps it kind of like a mess in there where there's not a running lane per se. But I wouldn't say that he pushed any of the hogs back here. No,
he did not win this rep. But again, he tried to just kind of get skinny, get through that the chip, the initial double. But again, sometimes you're going to get beat, and that's and all these NFL teams are going to be all right. So show me all the clips where they're going to look at, hey, where's all the clips where we got double teamed and or chipped up? Somebody was chipping up onto him, from him to a backer. This is one of them, and he doesn't win the rep.
One positive thing, he's double teamed. He stays on his feet, though, tries to spin around and see what he can do from the backside. I think NFL teams like to see that, and the relentless effort is something that we saw with Wyatt, especially in this last year with Georgia.
Yep, very much so.
There it is one more time.
And you think about what NFL teams do. It's more of, as opposed to what can you do, it's, all right, do I need to relook at this? And I'm sure there's probably a series of things that they look at in their evaluations where, all right, character, hustle, all these, sort of soft skills in a way that aren't, height, weight, speed, size, things like that. And it's like, all right, check the box versus, ooh, he didn't check the box in the hustle character category, so we need to slide him onto this other little pile.
You also wonder what can they do on special teams. Well, Davis and Wyatt both together here. Formidable duo in field goal blocking attempts.
Yep, and then add Jalen Carter, who we'll look at next draft season, and we'll probably talk about and do his video first.
Yeah, even higher. We wouldn't be showing this if it wasn't a block kick. It was Devonte Wyatt. Stays pretty low, gets this gap right in here.
Yep, size and strength right here. And then athleticism to come up and make the block.
Get that ball, Dan Jackson. He went out of bounds. That was the last play of the half, if I remember right.
Quarter. Last play of the quarter.
It was the last play of the quarter. You're right.
Third quarter, I think.
2nd and 2 against Kentucky here.
Again, same sort of thing we talked about a little earlier. He's getting doubled in the left guard, or I think it's the left guard, working up to him or working up off him. Center and guard combo. Initial double, and then the center handles him. And by the way, that's Luke Fortner, who's going to be drafted at some point in this draft for Kentucky, maybe even in the top, say, 120 picks. But so it's not like these aren't good players that he's going against. But again, this is another one of those where guys are going to be like, all right, did you win your rep when you're getting double teamed and or chipped?
Yeah, I don't think the NFL teams are going to like to see how he kind of gets bent back from the shoulders and is, kind of off balance from to begin with on this play. Again, tough assignment. Kentucky really does a good job of making Georgia focus with the linebackers there because they
have a good line
on the interior. Yeah, they're a good team.
And that's one of what's your best on best? So that's play against Kentucky. A few different plays here we're going to show against Alabama. What do you look like when it's best on best?
Well, and now this may be, if I think about Georgia's season, obviously Keely Ringo's interception in the national championship. You've got A.D. Mitchell. When I started thinking of like the most impactful plays of college football, this one's right there at the top of the list for me for what happened last season.
It's a completely different game if they get this ball. But this is one of those, you can't teach this effort. The fact that he almost falls down and still has the fight, still has won the fight to the ability to get to Bryce Young. 3 causes the fumble, almost gets it. But, and this is how did Georgia's strategy change from the SEC championship to the national championship? Devonte Wyatt didn't do any of that sort of spy technique in the national championship. But still, this is one hustle box, check. The ability to chase down a QB, and a pretty quick QB from behind, check. Now he's making moves, but still he's chasing him, forcing, impact play, forcing a fumble, check. Like that, there's a lot of boxes that he's checking on this play.
Well, and one reason I said that this play kind of determines the national championship. I know Georgia lost this game in the SEC championship, but just what you were saying, he's playing a spy here, and he does stumble to get out of the box. And Georgia did not do this in the national championship, but this is also the same play, and you see it toward the end where John Mechie tore his ACL. And that was a big thing that Alabama lost one of its biggest playmakers in this particular play. And if Nolan Smith stays on this football, then Georgia may win this game too.
Who knows? It was a very impactful play in a multitude of ways, especially with the Mechie injury, like you said.
You mentioned earlier about what he does when he's not playing beside Jordan Davis, but yes, this is Jalen Carter here. But Georgia's doing fine with Carter and Wyatt. Let's put it that way. Here's Wyatt.
And this is one that probably is going to be the least, if I'm looking at this, because there he is in a true nose. He's the true nose here, gets worked by the center. Guard kind of helps a little bit.
See, that's smart to run away from Jalen Carter.
And when you think about him when we did these earlier in the week, we talked about Jordan Davis and how low his negatively graded play percentage was. Devonte Wyatt's was almost double in terms of negatively graded plays percentage-wise from Jordan Davis, but it's still really low.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe like 4% of his play, a little right around 4% of his plays, a little over 4% of his plays that had a negative grade associated with it. But still yet, there's certain things where, yes, you're gonna lose some battles. But what do you do from an ability standpoint? And here's another one where, all right, 3rd and 1,
gotta make that play.
Over pursue a little bit, and miss a tackle, one of his 8 in his career.
Because look here, that is a big old leg hanging out right there. Stay skinny to this spot. He takes one step too far, and that's a darn good running back from Alabama. Don't get me wrong. Brian Robinson's a good player, but that's Trey Sanders, excuse me. Still a good running back, not as good as Brian Robinson, but Sanders was helpful for Alabama. Got to make this play to get off the field.
Yep, and based upon how high he played there, it was one of those where that was probably the time when a little bit gassed on defense. But by the way, what do we show? We show all the good. We're not just showing the good stuff. We got to show some of the negative things too, because guess who's going to look at those plays? NFL evaluators. Well, they're going to look at the negative just as much as they're going to look at the positive.
This was an important point earlier in the week. We said Jordan Davis doesn't have as many negative plays. I will say Jordan Davis didn't hustle as often at the end of plays like Devonte Wyatt did, but I don't think he can get there in a lot of those. Devonte's faster than Jordan Davis. He can move across the field a little bit better, but he also doesn't occupy as much space. And so there's give or take with all of this. I think they're both good prospects. It just depends on what an NFL team needs.
I think ideally what an NFL team would need is both of them. In a perfect world, they both go to the same team and they just do their thing like they did at UGA for the past 3-4 years.
Here he is here. You see him knife his way to the backfield. Again, good moves.
Hands just didn't finish the play. And this is what we saw from him in 2021 or 2020 and then 2019, where he had pressure out the wazoo. It's just he's not finishing the play. And this is one of the few that he didn't finish in this past season. But still, violent hands, quick move, left guard had no chance, explosive ability, quickness, short area quickness. There's all the things, sort of physical traits that NFL teams are wanting and are going to draft, in that first round type area. I've seen him as high as, if you look at it from a big board perspective, he's 25th on the PFF big board, so actually higher than Jordan Davis. He's 27th on Dayne Brugler's. He's 38th on Daniel Jeremiah's. So a little bit of range for him, and that's probably where you're going to see him from a pick standpoint. I've seen mocked as high as like 15, but I think he's much like Davis. He's going to end up in the 20s, kind of I could see the team like the Chiefs at 31.
You took my game from me. I think he feels like a Kansas City Chief, one of those guys that goes in there for the next 5-6 years. I know D Ford was an edge rusher, but the way that D Ford kind of not revolutionized, but kind of changed the face of that Chiefs front seven. I think Devonte Wyatt can kind of plug into that role of, I can be productive here for a while. I've got a good injury history. It's a good, solid player.
And they just Chris Jones is a very good interior player for them. I think they need help beside him. They got Frank Clark on the edge, and then obviously I don't know how those guys in the cap situations and whether there's cap casualties or not still around. But I think that's one area where, from a resource standpoint, that Kansas City hasn't really invested a lot in. And I think if you look at what the Chiefs have done in the past, where this past offseason, their offensive line was in shambles, so they go and they draft Creed Humphrey. They go and they draft Trey Smith. They sign Joe Thuney. So they go put a lot of resources to it. I could see them putting a lot of resources into their defensive line this offseason.
Other team I considered was the Cardinals. Seems like he could
maybe late in the first round, mid-20s.
Maybe I see him wearing red wherever he goes, because that's the two teams that popped in my head.
Very not good shade of red, but still red. Yes.
Or he can go to the Dolphins. All the players think they want to go to the Dolphins because it's Miami, but then you realize it's still the Dolphins. And they haven't been good for a long time. But they could use defensive line help, that's for sure.
Yes.
Just a lot of different help.
And if someone, I do think if someone, and if he happens to fall into that upper part of the second round, I think someone's getting a high-level first-round type player. And I think that's I had this conversation with someone about the draft recently, where this draft from 15 to say like 50 or 60, it's going to be a, tomato situation where it's, hey, you might like this guy a little better. I might like that guy a little better, but there's still, one guy might get picked at 48. The other guy might get picked at 20, but the teams had him really close on their board. I think just there's a lot of depth in that 15 to 60 range where any of those guys, it's just really team and personal preference from what it is that the team is looking for.
Do you have Devonte Wyatt as a first-round pick?
I do think he goes in the first round. I think he falls towards the latter part of the first round in the 27 to 32 range.
Okay. I've got him sliding probably early second round. We'll see at this point. We're doing these videos in order of how we think the Bulldogs will be drafted. Trayvon Walker was first, Nakobe Dean second. Jordan Davis and Devonte Wyatt, we flip-flopped on a little bit really as we did this because it's so dependent on the team's needs. If you need one that maybe not play all the downs but do something very specific, Jordan Davis is your guy. If you need someone that can be a three-down player, Devonte Wyatt's more of your guy. I do think that we agree in our discussions that those four guys, Walker, Dean, Davis, and then now Wyatt, are the first four guys taken off the board for Georgia. After that, it gets a little squirrely. We're going to get into Pickens and Scene and Quay Walker, and that really gets team need dependent, right? But in terms of the first four guys off the board, I think we feel pretty good that this is going to be it. And I feel pretty good about the order, frankly.
I do too. These last two with Davis and Wyatt are about the only two I think. I mean, and somebody could love Dean a lot, but I think someone's going to go for the physical characteristics of Walker ahead of him.
And I think all four of those guys will do really well once they get in the interview rooms. I think that's one thing that Georgia does a good job of helping them for. And frankly, like a Dean and a Davis may not have needed any help anyway. They kind of came in with that ready to go. And Wyatt and same thing for Walker too. And we're going to keep doing these NFL draft previews. We're doing 2 a week up until the NFL draft, and we'll have some more information after the combine. We're getting deep into NFL draft coverage here on UGASports.com. You need to be subscribed to this YouTube channel. That's Brent Rollins. I'm Dayne Young.